At a young age, polio and divorce would shape Dorothy Nutshorn's path in life. At 7, she came down with polio, leaving her with an awkward limp. At 12, her parents separated, leaving her with an unresolved anger towards family. Moving forward, she was determined for adventure and set out from New York to San Francisco, renaming herself Dorothea Lange, a tribute to her mother's maiden name, and set up her own photography studio at the turn of the 1920s. Lange had an ability to work well with people, leading to her great success as a portrait photographer. Over time, her social skills with her subjects deepened. After the stock market crash of 1929, the country was plunged into a deep economic slump. The Great Depression was now in swing, and even though this was a time of great hardship for most Americans, Lange seemed to prosper. A year before the photograph of what would now be known as the Migrant Woman was taken, Lange took up work with the California State Emergency Relief Administration. There, a photo documentary project had begun to draw attention to the plight of the rural poor. This job took Lange further west, where migrant farmers had relocated due to the twin devastations of the Great Depression and the effects of the Dust Bowl. And in these travels, by March 1936, Lange had found herself driving past a sign reading Pea Pickers Camp in Nipomo, California. She drove past this sign and continued on her way, but something was nagging at her. She reconsidered, turned around, and headed back to the migrant camp. She later recounted, "I saw and approached the hungry and desperate mother as if drawn by a magnet. She said that they had been living on frozen vegetables from the surrounding fields and birds that the children had killed." She went on to add that she didn't ask for the woman's name or her history. The migrant woman spoke of her age, 32, and said that she had just sold the tires off of her car to buy food. She sat in a lean-to tent with her children huddled around her and seemed to know that the pictures might help her. Lange used her Garaflex camera with a 4x5 film and shot 7 exposures of the woman and her children. She didn't approach any other tents. She viewed it as unnecessary and that she had recorded the essence of her assignment. Upon returning from the Nipomo Pea Pickers Camp, 2 of the photos were published in the San Francisco News under the headline, "Ragged, Hungry, Broke, Harvest Workers Live in Squalor." The photo was picked up again the following day on March 11th under the editorial, "What does the New Deal mean to this mother and her children?" The look of the image is dramatic not just in content but in style. Color film was rare in the 1930s. It was expensive, sensitive to changes in temperature, and difficult to process. Many documentary film photographers felt that color would distract from the content of the photo, so photographers like Lange typically preferred the look of black and white. Lange composed the shot carefully. Some speculate that the children looking away might be a decision of posing, but back then, cameras were rare and expensive, and it could be that the children had never seen one before. Children are typically afraid of strangers as well. This was all for the best when it comes to the composition of the shot. The viewer focuses in on the woman's serious face of concern as she uses her body to shield her children. Upon the publication of the photo, federal authorities sent 20,000 pounds of critically needed food to the camp. However, by the time it arrived, the still anonymous woman and her family had moved on. Even though the image of her and her children were becoming widely known, appearing on magazine covers and postage stamps, the identity of the woman was still unknown. That is, until 1978, when a woman named Florence Owens Thompson wrote a letter to the editor of the Modesto Bee newspaper claiming to be the woman in the photograph. She said she wanted to set the record straight. In an Associated Press article called "Woman Fighting Mad Over Famous Depression Photo," Thompson told a reporter that she felt exploited by Lange's photo. There were also disputes over Lange's account on what happened that day. Thompson went on to say that she was a full-blooded Native American with both parents being Cherokee. In the mid-1920s, she and her husband at the time found work at a farm and mill until he died of tuberculosis in 1931. Florence Thompson was left to support 6 children by picking cotton and other crops. She said she picked around 450 to 500 pounds of cotton every day, leaving home before daylight and coming home after dark. The day Lange found her, she was living with a man named Jim Hill, had 2 other children, and were forced to pull over into the Pea Pickers camp after their car had broken down. 2 of her older sons were in town getting the car's radiator fixed. One of the boys, Troy Owens, flatly denied the claim that they had to sell their tires for food. They didn't believe that Dorothea Lange was lying, just maybe getting the story mixed up with something else. In 1940, Lange was fired from her position with the Farm Security Administration for being uncooperative. Basically, she refused to follow orders and point her camera at what was fashionable at the time, instead opting to document the brutality of American life. She made critical images which the government tried to suppress during the time of war. In an essay written for her son in 1952, Lange critiqued contemporary photography as being in a state of flight, seduced by the spectacular, frenzied, and unique at the expense of the familiar and intimate. She commented that photography had become more concerned with illusion than reality, that it doesn't reflect but contrives. She urged photographers to push back against this trend and urged photographers to reconnect with the world. 5 years after claiming her identity, Florence Thompson was living alone in a trailer. She was suffering from cancer and heart problems, and at one point her children had to solicit donations for her medical expenses. Thousands of letters poured in, along with contributions reaching more than $35,000. Even though her family had finally worked their way into the middle class, Florence Thompson never felt comfortable in a conventional home. When her 10 children bought her a house, she instead chose to live in a trailer, saying, "I need to have wheels under me." Florence Thompson died in September 1983, just after her 80th birthday. Even Ronald Reagan offered condolences, writing that Miss Thompson's passing represents the loss of an American who symbolizes strength and determination in the midst of the Great Depression. The familiar world is so often unsatisfactory and cannot be denied, but it is not, for all that, one that we need to abandon, Dorothea Lange argued. We need to be seduced into evasion of it any more than we need to be appalled by it into silence, bad as it is. The world is potentially full of good photographers, but to be good, photographs have to be full of the world.